Transmissions from the planet ZOG. Brought to you by Teal Productions, a branch of the Art Tree. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Natasha, and I would like to present to you tonight our panel. We have four major experts, international experts, who have flown in from around the world to discuss with you tonight the subject of ZOG. We all know this is something which has been fascinating us for quite some time and has been around in the media, and tonight we have the possibility of discussing with these people really many of these important traits which are in the planet Zog. So please join with me in applauding our wonderful panel. I would like to introduce them to you now, and then we can begin with the evening. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have questions, and we will try to include your questions into the debate. So, my first guest, Mr. Mike Myers, and he is a very established industrialist, and he has been studying the economy of industry and the patterns of growth. And he's here tonight to discuss the situation on ZOG. So, Mike, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, thank you. I just want to say that industry is, of course, the growth factor in our economy, and it's something which has the power to destroy or to bring growth, to bring prosperity and well-being. So I think it really is high time that we look at what ZOG has done and realise that they are achieving great things. It's time for us to go in that direction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myers. I would like to introduce our next guest, a lady who has been really well known for her books. Her books on health. I'm sure you have all heard of The Whole Health and many other books. I think that is the most recent. It is Miss Helen Sawyer. Please, a round of applause for Helen Sawyer. Oh, thank you. Yes, well, really, health is the mainstay of our existence. So if we are going to think about looking after ourselves and looking after our planet, I think that ZOG is really a shining example of what can be done. I'm very excited to tell you about the things that they're doing. So do watch out, and I'll try and give you the information as simply as possible. Thank you very much, Miss Sawyer. And now we're going to move on to our next guest, and I am sure you will agree that this lady has a lot to say. She is an expert in her field in housing and planning, and she's here to discuss this issue on ZOG. So may I introduce Dr. Marianne Barkley? Thank you. Well, really what I'd just like to say is that, of course, the situation in our country is quite dire. We've got sky-rising property prices. Not enough buildings are being created. We've got this whole difficult situation built into our culture, and now is the time to address it. So if we look at what ZOG has achieved, okay, they are far more advanced than us, but it's time to look at what they've achieved and to try and emanate some of that within our policies.
Thank you, Dr. Barkley.
Thank you. And now I would like to introduce our last guest. She is a renowned musicologist. Music is, of course, her life ethos. She lives for this subject, and she's a very, very lively speaker. I'm sure you will agree. Her name is Miss Pippi Langstrumpf. Please, a round of applause. Thank you. Will you please say a few more words? Oh, thank you, Pippi. Thank you. Of course, well, really, when we get to talk about music, that is, of course, when I'm flowering. And ZOG is the place for music. Just about everybody seems to possess this capacity to create the most marvellous music. And I'd just love to be able to tell you some of the things. Of course, I can only touch on just the very edge of it. But really, their methods are so extraordinary that it's worth an in-depth analysis, and I look forward to telling you about them. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Ms. Langstrom. So I would like to have one more special round of applause for our wonderful panel tonight. We have Mr. Mike Myers, Helen Sawyer, Dr. Mariam Bakri, and we have Pippi Langstrumpf. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the debate. I hope you will participate, and thank you. And I look forward to talking and listening to you. Thank you very much.
Did you leave fairies in full flappy happy little leaf fairies hanging in your window from the ceiling? Flat little leaf fairies ornamenting every room. £2.50, there's one for every child in you at the art tree.
It's getting cold out there. Hand-crocheted wool warmers for your wrists, for your bum, pixie hats for your head, all carefully cobwebbed hats. Wrist, head, bum warmers, pixie hats. That's mental health. At the art tree, my lad. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our talk on ZOG. We will be able to cover today the first of the several questions asked by our audience. So here we are. So, yes, I think we have a question from the back. Yes? Would you please tell us your question? Can you see if you can tell us your question?
Could the panel tell us what kind of religion is practised on ZOG? And do they have the same kind of extremism as we are suffering from in our country today?
Thank you. So, did you hear that, panel? Yes, you'd like to take it on, would you, Miss Sawyer? All right then. Take the floor. Well, really, I've already said that, of course, health is my theme. I couldn't help but pick up a few things as I was there, and I would like to address the questioner. So, really, in ZOG, they don't actually have any religion as such, which might shock you. Yes, they don't have that kind of structure. What it seems that they do have is this innate sense of personal wisdom, which they manage to maintain and keep relatively stable, so that it can guide their efforts every day in their lives. And excuse me, I think Mr. Myers would like to add another point. Is that all right, Miss Sawyer? Okay, if I could just finish my sentence. Yes, okay, fine. They do have this wisdom, and really their entire health structure is based around maintaining this inner balance. And that's why they don't actually have the necessity for external facilitations such as religion. They don't actually require it anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What I wanted to add was that although I am a reporter on industry, and what I have noticed is that within the firms they're on ZOG, there's a kind of a natural aggregation of people of the same belief. And they're kind of joined together in a company. So it's where you would have, employee systems where you just advertise for jobs and vacancies if they were available. What happens on ZOG is that it's spread mostly by word of mouth. So that those who have a natural affinity for, say, water processing, they tend to aggregate in the same companies. It's almost as if their work becomes their religion. That's just the point I wanted to make. It's like they've got this... it's like a sense, innit? A sense of belonging that says, I know I'm really strong in understanding water. So I'm going to go and work with water, and I'm going to find people with whom I can talk about it. And it's almost as if it becomes their religion. And I think that's why the standard of their manufacture is so high, because the ethics and morals backing them up. They're backing them up the whole time.
Yes. Did you want to add something? Yes, Miss Langstrumpf? Oh, okay, yeah. Yes. Yes. What I'd also like to say is that, of course, there is an aspect to the music which is of worship. So you were talking about what kind of religion they have, and do they have the same kind of conflicts? Well, one of the most fascinating things I found out on ZOG was the idea of a sing-off. Yes, it's quite an incredible thing to do, to witness. Just imagine there are two feuding parties. They're fighting over something, maybe about, the dog went over to another person's house and peed on the carpet. So, these sort of things happen, like they do over here. And they're obviously quite annoyed. They've got to sort it out. So what happens is they quickly go and find a third person. Usually there are several people in the village who are able to act as the third person. And they're sort of like a judge in this sing-off. So they stand in the middle. The two parties who are at war temporarily, they stand either side of this judge, and each in turn begins to sing. So instead of pulling your gun, like we're used to, they start to sing. So the one, say, who's feeling aggrieved might either make up their own song, or they might take an historical version of a song of grievance. And often these songs are so embedded in the culture that they're almost it's as though you might go to a church meeting or just talk to someone in this village and they'll be reciting a scripture from the Bible, because of course we're still predominantly Christian society. Or you might go somewhere in the Middle East where they'll recite a piece from the Quran. What they do instead is they sort of recite their emotional texts. It depends really on how long this kind of feud might have been going on for. So you might get something that we would probably classify as Wagnerian coming out of the opponent with a great force. And the judge, of course, has got to sort of determine how long that should go on for, because they're sort of the neutral party and they have to assess the grievance as well. So it often bounces back and forth between the parties, and you can imagine how complicated this could be if they have, say, a group of 12 people. They're all actually discussing something that's quite emotionally charged, and they manage to do this. They each sort of take their historical texts, which tend to be similar in scope to some of our religious texts. So in answer directly back, of course, they don't have religion in itself, but they do seem to sort of grasp back to historical texts. And they use them in these sing-offs, which they use to solve disputes. So I suppose they don't seem to have different religious factions, but I'm sure, as you all know, that those kind of opinions can be very intense. Well, thank you very much, Miss Lamstrumpf. Thank you. I would just like to ask the member in the audience, are you satisfied with the answer?
Yes, I'm quite happy.
Well, thank you very much. We must wrap it up for today, but please, audience, bear in mind we will be coming back next week with further discussions from this debate with my special guests, and please do tune in and join us next week for transmissions from the planet Zog. Goodbye. And that was Natasha Ramushki reporting from the planet Zog. Please do tune in same time next week at 8:45 on Friday evening for transmissions from the planet Zog.